Hey everyone, I'm Kunaal Bajwa.
And I'm Lance Jordan.
We are two nerds who decided to start a podcast in 2020 due to the pandemic. No topic is necessarily off the table, and we'd like you to join us in hearing our thoughts on various topics, ranging from anime to Zeppelins. We have it all. Here we go. All right. Hey everybody. Thanks for joining us again.
We're back.
That's right. As many good rappers have said, we never left.
We have not left. We've only gotten better.
We've only... Exactly. Yeah, today is going to be fun. We're kind of the back-to-back episodes of Get to Know Your Podcast host. So last time we got to see a little insight into my life. This time we have our own Lance.
Yeah, but, before we get to me, that episode, 37 views.
Holy crap. I was very touched by that. It made me want to open up even more in future episodes. I had no idea you guys loved me that much and loved us that much.
Right. 37 views. That's, to some, that might be a small number, but
yeah. And within 2 days, it was ridiculous.
Yeah. I was excited to see it. It's our third most viewed episode.
Still second to Arrow, but still ridiculously quick for how many views we got.
Absolutely. So, shout out to all 37 viewers.
Thank you.
Making our podcast what it is.
Yeah.
And then also a big shout out to some podcasts that shouted us out.
Yes.
Over social media.
The Whomst podcast, Dirty Heels, my friend Rashad and his podcast. He was pretty cool, and yeah, everybody's been really cool.
Yeah, some great podcasts. You should go listen to. Let's get into some business before we get to me.
That's right.
So you've been playing the Ghost of Tsushima.
Yeah, I got it.
It's funny because this is like a reoccurring thing on the episode. We keep talking about this game.
Yeah, you had just finished it.
Yeah.
I actually bought it, I think, the next day or something like that because I was like, yeah, screw it. I got nothing else I'm playing right now. I quote-unquote have a backlog, but even when you have a backlog, you need to have a game that's still you want to play.
Yeah, like something that's current.
Right, and so I bought it, and I got it digitally because getting anything physically is the plague right now. And don't worry, y'all, we're social distancing. We got a table that's 6 feet, so Lance and I are being safe.
Right, for now.
Other times we will see. But yeah, so I got it, and I'm falling in love with it. It's a really good game. It's visually astounding. Voice acting is really good.
Yeah, voice acting is really good.
Is really, really done well. I chose to weeb out and go in full Japanese in it, so I'm just reading the subtitles.
Okay.
Yeah.
Make it even more special.
I do, because I also want to see how they are going to explain some things. I've even heard my instructor Matt is fine with me talking about him a little more. He spent 10 years in the Bujinkan, which is essentially the samurai and ninjutsu. There's 10 different schools that all kind of consolidated into one art called the Bujinkan. So they teach you some shinobi or ninjutsu skills and some samurai skills. Now I'm very, very oversimplifying, but that's the bare minimum of the understanding. So I want to see what they're keeping in and what they're putting out. I've heard it's not completely historically accurate in the weapons and how things work, but I'm happy to let that go.
Yeah.
I just enjoy the game. It is cool to see, because I do know that the Mongols attack, like we mentioned episodes earlier. They do attack Japan, and it's interesting to see wartime for any kind of game, because you get to see the common trends that really happen, because typically you always see certain factions play politics and side with the enemy to get revenge or to get higher standing in society from that. You see that in the game for sure.
Yeah.
Different tactics that they're using. It's cool. It's cool for me to see that. I don't want to spoil too much of it because it's a really good game and I really recommend it.
Yeah. As we get closer to the end of the year, do you think game of the year for you, or
of what I've played?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think it would definitely be a game of the year. Yeah.
One of your candidate.
Yeah, I'm about halfway, or at least 2/3. I have to do a lot of the side quests before I get to the last mission. So, yeah, I think it could be game of the year. Granted, I haven't played too many games this year. I was clearing up some backlog, trying to be somewhat productive during this pandemic. So.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think of what even came out other than this game for me that I played. Maybe like UFC 4 and NBA 2K, but I feel those are games that they come out with every year. They just put a new number on it.
Right. Update the stats, maybe clear up the graphics.
Right. Maybe there are 1 or 2 new characters, but nothing really original to put it in the game of the year conversation. But yeah, man, I've been enjoying it. And another thing people have been talking about, the presidential debate.
I don't know if it was a debate as so much as like you probably saw my post. I posted on Facebook. I was like, I was actually playing Ghost of Tsushima, and I saw it was like 7:15. I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna keep on playing.
Right.
And then I would like check my phone, maybe like during a loading screen, or if I need to use the bathroom or something. And sure enough, my choice was a very good one that night. I did not even waste 2 breaths with it, and then everything was pretty much talked about within 20 minutes after the debate was done. We got to hear so much of the highlights, and then Donald Trump gets corona the day after, or like 2 days after.
Yeah.
Again, we're not making this necessarily a political podcast, but this is our fucking podcast, so we can do what the hell we want.
That's right.
To.
And we're both going out in November, I trust.
Yes, I'm registered to vote. I'm always ready to go. Just go out there and vote, and not only vote for the presidential, but for the Congress and House of Reps too.
Yeah.
There's a video I was sent recently about that, and I'm like, that's a damn good point. We always talk about the presidential. We don't talk about the other ones. They are purposely made hard for you to vote in. So if you need help, try to find, like, team up with some people and try to make it easier. Carpool, do what you have to. Make sure you get the voting done. If you have to, maybe take a day off. I know that's asking a lot, but in this upcoming election, we need it. We need it quite a bit.
I just kind of feel like the media has done, and the media kind of plays into what we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
The media kind of plays this role where, at least for me growing up, about the president, you'll learn a lot about them for months. Even the guys who don't even make it to be president, like we learned about Bernie for Mayor Pete and Kamala Harris. We learn about all these people and what they'll do, but we don't learn about the House of Representatives, what they stand for.
And those are where like most of the laws are passed.
Yeah, that's
or at least written and passed.
Everything goes on there. The Senate.
Yeah. Even
locally, you'll get a few slander commercials like, she hates abortions,
those are the dumbest.
Or he's for abortions, but you never really get to learn about candidates like you learn about the president. So I think that's something I would like to see the media do better. But at the same time, I think it's on us, the people, to go out, do our research.
We have a responsibility too. Like we sign up for this. If you want to be a citizen of the United States, there are certain things you have to do. You're not obligated necessarily to do them, but if you want certain things, I would very much encourage you to go out and vote and do all those things. Don't get me wrong, like it doesn't solve everything, but it's one factor in the equation. So that's how I look at it.
Absolutely.
If Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is an example for anything, it's that someone who's a year older than me can make a tremendous amount of difference.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, even watching her interrogate Mark Zuckerberg was probably one of the best things I've ever seen.
Was this the one where he was on trial for the sharing of information?
Something like that, yeah.
Okay.
And she just like tears him to shreds and then says, "Is that also why you got a bad haircut?" and like there was a part of me that was like, "Why?" But then there's a part of me that's like, "That was hilarious. I'm glad you did."
Look at that man haircut alone. He went to Great Clips early in the morning that day.
And he wanted to save some cash. All billions of dollars that he didn't have, apparently, to get a good haircut. But I go to Great Clips too sometimes, so it's all good.
I've only been to Great Clips once, and I was desperate.
I've had to go there recently because I just like everywhere else is closed or something.
Yeah. There was this one time I was desperate, but in the black community, that's a cardinal sin, if you will, to go to Great Clips. But,
as a brown man, I absolve you from that sin.
But it was a black woman who cut my hair. But Yeah, she didn't know how to do aligning.
I might be excited about a movie coming out soon. Do you remember what movie it is?
Oh, let's. It's been a while, people.
It has. It's been a minute. Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
I thought Lance was so annoyed with me talking about Yakuza, he wouldn't want me to talk about this.
No, we're talking about it. I just want you to know
Yeah.
that video game movies do not have the best.
They have a terrible record.
A terrible record.
No, you can come out and say
like
it.
if it was a MMA, if they were an MMA fighter,
it'd be okay.
You would not want to watch him fight.
Yeah. Oh no, yeah. Like
you'd be like, this guy is like 10-2. Like,
yeah, so like they're supposedly making a movie off of Yakuza, and the color the poster that they're using is from the second one, which is a really really like insane story to start with too.
Yeah,
there's a whole bunch of like sleeper cell like tropes and stuff. Not tropes, but just like people who have been pretending to be one part of a mafia when they're actually from a different part of the mafia, and a whole bunch of stuff. Here's the thing. I don't have high hopes for it, especially if an American Hollywood takes over the project, because they will screw it up 100%.
I can see a sweat on your forehead. You're a little nervous. We're nervous people.
Very, very much so. And then also, isn't it Nick Fury is supposed to be getting his own series?
They can keep it.
You don't want that?
They can keep it.
Okay. We're going to let it go.
No, I mean, isn't it Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
Pretty much.
We're going to revamp that.
So, like, here's the thing. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., he shows up like 3 times.
Yeah.
That's it. We could find out what he is actually doing this entire time in the Marvel Universe, because he retires his post. Well, he's forced to retire his post. And then S.H.I.E.L.D. comes back because branding. And then I don't really know what happens to him. Then he kind of just becomes an agent in the background. I mean, that'd be cool. We could see how he rises to that. But I also think it's oversaturated right now.
Yeah, I think it's a little much. I mean,
yeah.
It's interesting what Marvel's doing, because I was reading that they recently announced that Jamie Foxx would be back.
I don't want him.
You don't want
No.
Don't want it. Don't want it. But
I love Jamie Foxx. I just hated him as Electro. Like this
right.
Yeah.
But they announced he's coming back, and then they're saying, and this could be purely rumor speculation, that the Wanda and Vision show.
Oh, WandaVision, I think?
Yeah.
Like WandaVision, yeah.
Apparently that's going to explain how Electro comes into the MCU.
No thanks.
So, I don't know. I just think as a fan, it was enough for me to watch every movie to see how they linked up, to get to Endgame.
That is cool. I will fully admit
Infinity
that.
War. It can get to be much if I have to watch WandaVision, and I might not like WandaVision.
Yeah.
But
who knows?
Because I didn't watch it, I'm going to be confused about a movie. I feel like that's a bit much.
It is a bit much. And Marvel has a good enough writing staff, in my opinion, where they could meet you halfway.
Yeah.
At least they should. Otherwise, it's a lot. But anyhow, this is one of our longest intros.
Hold on, one more thing.
Go for it, yeah.
Really quickly. Since we're on the TV superhero universe, how do you feel about potentially the CW Arrowverse ending in favor for the HBO Max universe? So like Titans, Doom Patrol, because some people feel with Supergirl ending that this could be a sign that the entire CW universe could be crumbling.
I mean, like, Arrow needed to end. They had run out of storylines. It had gotten wild. They ended it a very nice way, I thought, honestly, by making him the Spectre and just like having him fade off in the background. In that way. I mean the character, not necessarily the show.
I mean, I liked it ended in a crossover.
Yeah. And they made him the Spectre, like his daughter carries on the...
I didn't care for the daughter.
Okay, well, anyhow, I thought it was okay. But I mean, like, yeah, it seems like there's... In Supergirl's ending... I mean, Stargirl is still going on. They just started up.
Right.
And I think they're specifically on HBO Max. I actually just signed up with them, too.
Oh, Stargirl?
Yeah.
Wasn't that like it was supposed to be on HBO Max, but then they didn't want it, and then they put it on CW,
Yeah.
and now it's
Now,
back on.
I think it's just network heads being annoying and logistics and whatnot. I hadn't heard about that until now, though. But yeah, like one of my favorite stunt doubles is on there. Actually,
Okay.
she plays Huntress. Actually,
Okay.
if all goes well, we should see there's like a video chat to get to know her in like a month or two. I'll let you know how that goes.
All right. Tell her about the podcast. Tell her that she's welcome to be a guest.
I'll let her know. We'll have to get her in if we can.
Use that Kunaal charm. You got Kate McKinnon. You can get her.
I love the self-referential we're doing here. This is awesome. But yeah, is it ending? Maybe, but I also feel like they're all DC characters, so like it's not really gonna end.
Right.
In other words, maybe like the network is CW, but the DC will never die.
Oh yeah, DC
Yeah.
won't die.
CW maybe, but I don't know. I don't really. We got plenty of stuff to watch. Is my point.
Yeah,
We got plenty of stuff to watch.
we're flooded.
But we should probably get to today's episode.
All right, enough
So-
stalling.
All right. So, as one of our whining and dining moments before this pandemic, I found out that Lance was a sports writer, and I was very entranced because I had never really met a reporter before who wasn't my friend. I had met them before, but they didn't hang out and watch anime with me. So, like, this is a new thing, and so today I'm going to talk to Lance about his time as a writer.
Yeah.
So what really got you in sports writing? Can you give us the background, any inspiration or anyone that was inspiration for you?
To get started, to know why I got into sports writing is to know what I was doing in college.
Yeah.
And so my earlier years in college, mostly spent in community college, I wasn't sure what I was going to do.
Ball in the club.
Yeah, I know, right? So I changed my major a couple times before I ended up at Webster University, actually.
What year was this, roughly?
Let's say 2015 for the
Okay.
sake of it. I was a public relations marketing student. And so, I was taking a lot of writing classes, a lot of media focused classes. But if you're from St. Louis, you know how expensive Webster can be.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so I made it out maybe 1 year there.
Ooh.
Made it out. And then I spent the next year paying them back so I could transfer to UMSL. With UMSL, the equivalent to that degree was media studies,
Ooh.
which is a fancier term for mass communications. Yeah, so and I only had about maybe a year left of college. It took me 7 years to finish college. I'm digressing a bit, but
Hey, you got it done. That's the important part.
exactly. So this is my final year in college. I'm at UMSL. I'm taking a intro to news writing course. The teacher, I'll say his name on here because I doubt he's listening. Ryan Kroll. If he is listening, sorry, you're in this now, buddy.
Too late.
Exactly. Ryan Kroll. He was my intro to news writing professor, and he was also the advisor for The Current, which is UMSL's student-run independent newspaper. So that means the school did not fund it.
Ooh.
Even though we operated in the school did not fund us, couldn't control us really, because there were some stories that...
That's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, exactly. There were some stories that, they didn't care for too much.
But they couldn't kick you off.
No, they couldn't tell us they could, if something was like a little too controversial, they could say, I don't even think they could pull it because it was like,
They would just ask nicely, I guess.
right. They'll pull the newspapers as a whole, because we printed our stories not only online, but like on paper.
Ooh.
So actual newspapers. And, I guess if there was something they really, really didn't like, they could have us pull them, or they would pull them. But getting back to it, so I was in this news writing class. and I'm doing the first assignment, which was to interview a partner, kind of find out the most interesting thing about them. And so I do this assignment. I probably made it really difficult for that other person, but
That means you cared about it. That's a good thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I interview this person. I extract all the information I need. I write this article for the class, and I, turn it in, get it back. Great, great response from the professor. He loved it. He wrote on it like, I think you're a good writer. Have you thought about joining the paper? Now, he could have wrote that on everybody's paper, and I just did not know. So I was a little bit flattered a bit. I was like, oh. So that really inspired me to
That's really cool, man.
actually do something with college, because I was not in any groups beforehand, wasn't networking. So I was like, let me actually try. So, I go there their first meeting, and it's a very laid back environment. Everyone's nice, but at the same time, everybody's a bit off to themselves. It's not really not like how in your previous episode, everybody was kind of together as a group.
For the most part.
Yeah, but it was like at this meeting, there was like maybe 4 different editors who had their own sections. Like one was entertainment, one was student relations or something.
Yeah.
Like what's going on on the
Current
campus.
events.
And so what the thing was, they would go up, they would be in front of everybody, be like, hey, this is what some topics that we have. Can, a writer go cover them? And so I'm getting there, I pick an easy one, like entertainment. And the first article I actually write is about Atlanta, because that was a new show at the time with Donald Glover.
I've seen clips for that. I need to watch that show.
Great show.
Yeah.
So I wrote a review about the first episode, and basically letting students know it's a good show. While doing that, also the editor-in-chief, her name is Kat, she had these sports stories that no one was covering at the time. Like no one at UMSL was covering sports.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, Webster's more known for its production, theater, entertainment. Not to say that there aren't athletes there, but it's not necessarily known for its athletic endeavors.
Yeah, and UMSL was the same way. I mean, I think they were big in Missouri, but as far as campus engagement, people actually wanting to go to sporting events, that's where UMSL lacked. And then also, students just didn't care about it. And because they just really didn't care, to have people come into the newspaper group who were writers, they were more artsy in a way. They cared about government, politics,
right,
foreign relations, all these other things but sports. No one cared.
So essentially you had carte blanche. You could pretty much assume this role.
Yeah, and that's what happened. She had gotten contact with and I don't remember the people's name, because actually before this podcast I was trying to pull my articles up from online, and they're all pulled off. So that was a little discouraging. But so UMSL actually had a roller hockey team that wasn't a official team. Mm-hmm. So it's all alumni or current students who just love to play hockey. They would meet at this roller rink out in St. Charles somewhere, and they would hold their own practice. They became their own team. They weren't funded by the university, but they called themselves the UMSL Tritons. And so the Cat, she wanted to cover this. This was a newsworthy story.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I found this could double as an assignment of mine that was coming up for my class. So I was like, kill 2 birds, 1 stone.
Hell yeah.
And so I took on that assignment, wrote what I thought was a good article, best that I could do from interviewing the guy. And actually, what I end up learning that now, as I could probably be a journalist again, because the way I was interviewing people and the way people wanted to be interviewed, which was mostly by email and phone calls, would really work with this Corona environment. So there were some people I met and did interviews, but yeah, that was my first story in sports that I wrote. And after I wrote it and she read it, that's when it was offered to me. Hey, would you like to assume this role as a sports editor, because we have no one covering sports? So yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, big fish in a small pond. I like that. Yeah.
Long-winded answer.
No, that was perfect. So, is there any particular? Has there anyone that's been inspiration for you as a sports writer that comes to mind right off the top of the head? It doesn't have to be necessarily someone famous, but someone who's a mentor.
I wouldn't say so much names of any particular news writers. What I did earlier on when I was like getting information, doing interviews, I was pulling from a lot of the popular sports online publications. So
Okay.
I was looking at ESPN. I was looking at, how they were interviewing, what questions they were asking. Not only like the professionals, but if you go on ESPN or even Bleacher Report, they were covering college students and college sports. So I was like, honestly going in with the mentality that maybe if I treated this like a big thing, that maybe people would read it and they would start to treat the sports as a bigger thing for the university. But yeah, unfortunately, there wasn't a particular person that I was like modeling my style after, or someone who inspired me as far as sports goes. But yeah, I was looking at Bleacher Report, ESPN, to look for the style of writing and, the different types.
Okay, gotcha. So you're pretty self-made in that way. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And collectively, ESPN and Bleacher Report. Okay.
There were some other ones, but I can't think of the names.
Those are the big ones that come.
Yeah, those are the big ones.
Cool. So as I was preparing for this episode, I was thinking back, looking at you like in a sports writing reporter lens, and I noticed that it's always kind of been there, and I've never really noticed it. I never had something to put a name to it. Definitely, if you listen to our wrestling podcast, two-parter, I see it there. Yeah, you have a very good analysis there. So one, what skills stick out from the job specifically? And then are there any other sports what are your sports that you like to write about? And those are two different questions, but I feel like they go hand in hand.
So I would say skills-wise, what I learned was, and this even goes back actually to, us working on the social media side of our podcast, was how we address things, title things, when we publish things.
I'm laughing because of the last post that Lance did of our episode, where you have to see it. It's just me. I didn't even realize I dressed up like Michael Scott in that one. That was clutch. Keep on going.
You and Michael. Yeah. So just the media engagement, how many people you could reach. I also learned about titles being a big thing, headlines. So I learned this in class. You need the most engaging title to get people's attention.
Otherwise, not going to read.
Nobody's going to read.
Right. Let me say that is the hardest thing to do for this podcast.
Yeah. But you're doing it perfectly.
Thank
you're
you.
Doing it beautifully.
Thank you. It's turned out pretty well, but thanks.
Right. And another skill was in those titles, headlines, like say, the basketball team at UMSL. One, you want to use like the words crushing, soundly defeated. You want to use like
thundering, like
right.
Yeah.
You want to use all these crazy things in the title to engage people. But if they lost, she was like, UMSL fell short to, you want to downplay it as much as possible, even if it's like a blowout.
I think that's good because then you're still keeping spirits up in some way.
Right. Because even though we were like independent from the school, we weren't trying to slander. Well, I wasn't trying to slander the school in too many negative ways because I still went there. And then one big thing I learned is keep your relationships as well as you possibly can.
With the people you're interviewing or just the people you're talking to?
So this is, I don't know if we would have got to this point, but I'll tell the story now. So I was actually maybe 2 interviews in on students in the athletic department. Like I had interviewed them, published the story, everything.
Yeah.
So, one day I'm just like waiting inside the athletic building at UMSL, actually just on my computer, just working on assignment, just waiting to kind of see if I could find this one student I wanted to get to interview next. And, I finally met up with her and I was talking to her and she was like, we're not allowed to talk to you until you get the clearance from the UMSL Media Athletic Department. Yeah, this was like news to me. I'm like,
Okay.
whoa, wait, what? Like, I didn't know this was a thing at all because I was already 2 stories in. I was actually writing about the sporting events that were happening on campus mostly, or even like when they traveled. I was like putting in the paper, what had happened.
Things were fine. Nothing was really like alarmingly said to you
Right.
at this point.
Nothing was really said to me. So, I send out the email. I get in. Well, first I had to do my research and figure out who the person is. And so, I do my research. I find her. I send the email out, and now I'm getting this meeting to talk about going forward how I will approach the students to cover stories in the newspaper.
So this actually does lead into something I was going to ask you.
Right.
Specifically, like, what are memorable stories? This seems like it's a story within a story.
I guess, unfortunately for me, it was communication, even though I was like a communication major. This was always a big issue with me because it's like either just learning how to set things up properly, or when the story is coming together, making sure everybody's happy with it. But yeah, so I had this meeting, and basically I was like, I didn't know, I wasn't trying to step over anybody's toes by doing this. And so the agreement we came to was that before I could contact a student to do a story, I would seek permission from their media consultant first. And so that happened. And that was something I had to learn, just like, make sure, there's an order to things, and there's always somebody above somebody, I guess. But
Yeah.
that was one thing I learned. And then you had something else really good in that question too.
What are some memorable stories that stick out? Short or long, whatever you want to do.
Oh, I think you were asking also to go back, what was my favorite sports to cover?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
What kind of sports what sports do you enjoy? And then what sports do you enjoy writing about? Let me ask you that.
So with UMSL though, what you find is the sports that you like, you won't cover that much because the teams weren't doing so great. So,
Oh, well.
So basketball was like my favorite sport.
Still is.
Yeah, still is. Didn't have a football team, but basketball, baseball were 2 of my favorites to write about, but the teams weren't doing so great. And so what we had was a lot of students being unresponsive to interviewing. And you also find athletes aren't the biggest, well, at least at UMSL, the athletes there weren't like the biggest talkers. Like,
Yeah.
they really didn't understand why I had an interest in them to put them in the paper.
I kind of understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm going to make myself sound like an asshole, but I've really learned after I've had years and distance and time and process from, doing stage productions like improv and stuff like that. And I used to think that like, oh, anyone can get up here and do that. And then I realized that's not true. Not everyone can get up there and say something. Not everyone can get up and talk on a podcast. It takes a different skill set. And to be fair, I can't go up and shoot a basket because I can barely reach the rim. So like everyone has different skills, but that's not uncommon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now that you mention it, I wonder if like they put so much skill into sports that
Everything else kind of tapers off.
Yeah, everything tapers off.
Which is really sad because I wish people would be more Renaissance driven and try to do like dabbling in different things. But that's me.
Absolutely. But so I ended up covering as far as interviewing athletes go. So I ended up covering at least 2 male swim team members who were actually like really good. Like they were going to state.
Oh, okay.
They were going to regionals. They were, they were killing it. And it was funny because like the first guy I interviewed, and they were all, well, those 2 were foreign. So, and the first guy I interviewed was actually a freshman. So I was learning about his first time in America.
Where's he from?
That I do not remember.
Okay. It has been a minute, so yeah.
Yeah. I should have did more research. But but I was learning about the different clubs. Like there's a swim club, in his home country. After he gets home from school, well, after he gets out of school, he's going to the club to, swim.
He's not turning it up. He's swimming it in.
That's right.
That's what he's doing.
Right. Like their whole thing is like eat, breathe, something to get out of their situation to get to America to do something better to, help their family. And, those things were interesting. And,
cool.
I'm putting that in the paper. I'm putting in, their regimen.
You had their workout schedule and like how they eat and stuff?
Yeah. Like, so I was covering like, what are you eating? What is the diet?
That's really cool.
How are you training? What time are you waking up? Like these guys are waking up 4 or 5 and then, they have class at 8 or something like that. Or
they shave and everything?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And they're talking about also, they're acknowledging the fact that, school is difficult, but it's easy at the same time because like if they're traveling for a event, the teacher is, giving them extensions.
Yeah. Which is, not uncommon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I met those two guys, and I actually met those two guys in the cafeteria. And starting out, like I was actually going to other editors and other people who had been, writing for the paper. I was like asking for tips. And at first, I think with my first interview, the freshman, I was like, his name was Gabriel. I do remember that. Mm-hmm. I was writing shit down and I was like making sure I got everything. And I was like, this isn't going to be the way because like I would miss a quote or miss a word and like, things wouldn't read right. And so I started using a tape recorder. And so I was showing up with a tape recorder to my next few interviews. The ones that I could do had actually, but then at the same time, there were some students that I just couldn't get a hold of because they were always gone. And this was like, I'm like, when are you here? Like, this is crazy. Like,
do you just turn in the tuition and go?
Right. Just like, hey, I'm here to, there was one girl, she was playing golf and she was really fucking good. And I wanted to interview her because, I think it's incredible that our team is like killing it in golf and like nobody knows though.
Yeah.
So I was trying to bring light to it and, I got blown off by her a couple of times until finally we got to a point. And then my editor even said it like, why don't you just do an email interview? Why don't you? And I was like, an email interview? What is that?
In the world of 2020, that's like what we do.
Right.
Like you said earlier.
So yeah, in 2020, I mean, right now I'd be killing it. I would just be emailing questions and they would just, type a response under it. And if they needed to be trimmed down, it'd be trimmed down. But yeah, so I was doing that. I was covering sports when they were there. If they weren't there, I would take, and I think this was another thing that got me in trouble. Like
drinking all the tea today.
That's right. I'll incriminate myself. So I would, on the school website, the sports, whoever it is, the sports media people would, write the summaries for the games basically. And so I was taking those and putting those to kind of give a rundown of what happened in sports, this week, this weekend, for the following week, so people would know. Because honestly, it's cool that you had it on your website, but nobody knows. Nobody knows.
Like, who reads that?
Right. Nobody even know you had a website.
Very much so. So, getting back to my question, what sports do you actually enjoy and then enjoy writing about?
I enjoyed basketball because I understand how that game is played a lot better than swimming, softball, and what was another one I covered? Golf.
Gotcha. So basketball is your main thing.
Basketball was my main thing. We didn't have football, but we had baseball. I understood baseball. I understood baseball and softball.
Gotcha.
So I understood how to word those so that it sounds interesting and engaging. But when it came to swimming, golf, softball, not softball, but volleyball, I didn't know how to play those games.
They just hit that ball, man.
Exactly.
That's
and
right.
So like a lot of the writing is like not as involved or engaging. And a lot of times too, if I could, I would avoid doing recaps of those sports and doing interviews about the student themselves. And so that's why I was like hunting, because there was a way before I got in trouble, there was a way that you could get into the system and look up people's emails, and I was sending emails out to these students to do interviews that eventually led to me getting in trouble. And so
can I ask about that, or like what happened?
I think it just got out that some weird dude from the Current was emailing students about doing interviews.
Was that the name of the paper?
Yeah, the Current.
Okay.
And I think for them, they might have not even been aware of the Current. They might have just been like, what the fuck is that? And who the fuck is this guy trying to interview me?
That's how small it was. Okay.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
And so maybe that's what it was, looking back on it, reflecting. And maybe one student was like, I don't know what the fuck this is. Brought it to their coach, and the coach was like, brought it to, to the media people.
Bureaucracy.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Gotcha.
The powers that be. But then, like, at the same time, too, after we had made this arrangement where I would go to them, I just stopped hearing from them altogether.
Oh.
But I still... So then I started just going to the coaches and being like, hey, this is who I want to interview. Can you get me in touch?
Okay.
So
there's a tact to how to do it. There's a method.
There was a right way and there was a wrong way. But then when you do journalism, when you take these news writing classes, when you're in these organizations, when you actually work for a magazine or a newspaper, which I was lucky to do, you're productive when you're turning out stories. And the more interesting the story, the better. But it's not a job where you come in and somebody says, hey, here's the things we want you to do today, do them. That's not what it is. Like, when I got the sports editor role, there was some stuff already on the books, because we were lucky enough to get that information. But a lot of times it's like, and we did it like as a spreadsheet list of, other sections would be covered. It's easy to figure out what movie came out this weekend and, write a review about it.
Right.
Mine was, I had to go figure out what's going on in sports, like what's happening. So I was on the website. So I'm like, oh, such and such, won the championship. That's the fuck who I want to talk about. That's who I want to talk to. That's the story. And so for me, I was like, let's cut out the middleman, because obviously there's no working relationship here in the beginning anyway. So let me just go directly to who I want to talk to.
Build the silk routes. I totally understand. Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, it was a learning experience, and I had a couple other ones. Not necessarily UMSL, but with St. Louis Magazine.
Yeah, that was my next follow-up. So because of this, you got the internship at an STL magazine?
Yeah, so the end of that semester, I was applying to internships because it was kind of encouraged, to get an internship, to graduate, to do this class where you can do an internship, you can do some research, but I wanted to do an internship.
Sure.
And so I was sending out, writing samples and my resume out to a couple of different places that were taking interns for the spring semester. And so I was just sending them out. And I had actually, her name was Stephanie Russell. She was like the intern coordinator, also the entertainment editor at STL Magazine at the time. Mm-hmm. And she had seen my resume, seen my writing samples, and she was really impressed because also with STL Magazine, they weren't really covering sports like that.
So carte blanche again.
Yeah. So nobody was covering sports and nobody was writing about them. So that's what made me appealing to STL Magazine as an intern.
Gotcha.
So I get into STL Magazine, and I kind of learned that the sports writing that they wanted wasn't necessarily the same sports writing that I was used to. Like, I think you also have to understand too that STL Magazine, and I had to understand it, STL Magazine caters to an audience, this is all things I'm learning that I know now. Yeah. Like for our podcast, call a spade. We cater to 20 to 30-year-olds males.
Potentially, but we're looking to expand.
More. Yeah. I mean, more people listen, but we have Anchor, shout out to our sponsor and, Christian.
They get a shout out every episode.
Exactly. Anchor, exactly, in the beginning. But, they give us a breakdown and they're like, hey, the people who listen to it are mostly males.
Yeah, it has some pretty cool analytics of what we're listening to. And that does not mean we're pigeonholing necessarily to men. We're also, humans in general.
Right.
Fan peeps, as I like to say.
People. But at the same time, you have to acknowledge your demographic. And
yes.
For STL Magazine,
that is true.
Analytics show that their audience is mostly middle-aged white women.
Okay.
What it is. And they do not care about sports breakdowns. I mean, call it what it is. They do not care about sports breakdowns.
The spades are there for a reason, yes.
They love the Cardinals, but,
Yeah.
There was one really good sports story I think I got out of it, but it was also a learning experience, which I will share in a minute. But
sure.
Most of the stories that STL Magazine wanted was, here are the top 5 theme Cardinal tickets that you could buy. There's Star Wars night at the Cardinals game.
Okay, that just sounds boring. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so that's what sports writing for me there was reduced to. But okay. I was able to. So luckily that ended pretty quickly, and I was able to branch out into all these entertainment interviews that I was doing. Like I got to interview Artie Lang and Kay Flay, and I think his name is Brian. He was on Crashing.
Artie Lang,
comedian.
That's right.
Yeah,
you got to interview.
TV. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That's still live on the page too. I got to interview him. Super nice guy when I was talking to him on the phone.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I did not know that. Deal. That's cool, man.
And I was learning about his, come up and how he was working at this doc and how he got into comedy. He even offered like free tickets to his show that he was coming to St. Louis for. So I had got free tickets.
Hell yeah.
At the Funny Bone.
Okay.
To see him. Really great guy. Love that experience. Interviewed Kay Flay. She was like this alternative rapper, but that was probably the worst interview I ever fucking done.
Oh gosh.
Because you get set up. First you go, but this is, they're a bigger organization. You learn how things work.
Yeah.
So you're like, so we figure out, hey, she's coming. This is the artist that's coming. Let's reach out to her manager.
Sure.
So you reach out to the manager. The manager will set up the interview if they want to do it. If it seems like a good idea, they'll set up the time, the phone that you call. So we set it up with her, and come to find out, she's in basically the middle of fucking nowhere in Arizona, and the call keeps dropping.
Okay.
And so she can barely hear me. I can barely hear her, but I'm still like recording over my phone.
That sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah, it was a nightmare. We extracted what we could.
Okay.
Yeah, it happens. But it was like the worst one I ever done. It was kind of exciting at the same time because that was like the first interview I'd done with a semi-famous person.
That's cool.
And then that's what led to the other ones. Like I did one with Mod's son. Not many people know about him. He was a rapper. Did the one with Artie Lang.
Gotcha.
And but to go back to sports, when I was there, one of the better sports stories I did was with Larry Hughes and Larry Hughes's basketball camp. That's
cool.
Here in St. Louis. So with that one, when I pitched the idea, they thought it was great because, like I said, analytics show middle-aged white women love this magazine. They, go online for it. And when you're doing something like an activity that potentially their kids can get involved into.
Exactly.
You're hitting home. So I was hitting home with this one. Like I pitched it and they were like, this is great.
Hell yeah.
Go to the camp, interview the people, interview him, interview the staff, try to get a parent if you can.
Right.
Like
interview their kids, interview the kids' friends, interview the kids' teachers' friends. Do it all.
Right. So I think it's CBC.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that at the time, that's where the camp was.
That was a rival high school for me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Very nice school. But I get in contact with his manager. Me and the manager talk about it, what they want the story to be. So they want this informative piece talking about how it got started, what they offer, just, kind of focus on the program, just let people know it's out there. And so I get there, meet the manager. I'm sitting talking with her for a bit, and I'm telling her this is what I want to do. She lets me do it for the most part. The main person she was hoping for me to talk to was Larry himself. And I got to do that. And I actually got to sit off to the side with him after he got done kind of helping some of the kids out.
Sure. Got
these photo ops that they wanted to use for the paper to make it look like super cute and sweet. So I do the interview. I get the information that I can, and I'm working on the story. And at the same time, I'm still in contact with the manager, who is like, hey, really excited that you did the story. Before you publish it, can you send it to me? Yeah, how it looks. I'm like, okay, I can do that. And so, I get it done. I send it to her, and she is like, this need to be changed from the information I got. So I get that email, and then so I go to somebody, go to the person.
Yeah.
Like, hey, what do we do about this? Basically, she's wanting to set up a whole nother interview.
Right.
To add things and take things out.
She's playing politics, is what she's doing.
Yeah, she's playing politics.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that editor was like, kind of sucks for her. Because we got what we got. It looks good.
Okay.
For us.
You did this out of a courtesy kind of a thing.
Yeah, it was like kind of a courtesy thing when I didn't have to. That was something I learned. Like, I didn't have to send her the article.
Yeah.
Like, nobody really does that. It's not like I'm publishing this book on your life. Right. It's about, hey, CBC has Larry Hughes basketball camp.
Right. Like, I'm barely getting paid
Tuesday.
for this.
Yeah, Tuesday through Thursday. Long story short, we end up running the story. I get another email from her talking about some things we got wrong, or this, that, and the third. I think she left unhappy. But the story got a lot of likes.
Oh, cool.
So at the end of the day, can't please everybody.
No, you can't. Not with this podcast, not with any kind of interview. There's always going to be haters, no matter what.
Yeah.
That's okay. People are entitled to their own opinions. That's fair. So that was about the better part of 6 months, or how long was that?
Yeah, so that was like my entire spring semester.
Okay, cool.
I had sports writing classes and that internship all at the same time. Yeah, that's where a lot of the gray hair and the beard comes from.
I don't see, honestly though, I don't see much of the gray hair. So
oh, thank you.
You're looking good.
I will say I was lucky with one story I wrote that kind of doubled for UMSL and stlmagazine.
Sure.
And that was a story I wrote about the St. Louis Surge, which is a women's basketball team.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. And they used to actually run practices out of UMSL's gym.
Oh.
So what I was doing was initially interviewing them for St. Louis Magazine. I had talked to their general manager and we're doing these interviews to try to so they could boost their attendance at games. And so I did that for STL Magazine. And then when they told me about how they're leaving UMSL and no longer practicing there, I was like, oh shit, I got a story for UMSL. And so basically what I did was condense the part about UMSL, took that out and ran it in UMSL's newspaper.
Gotcha.
And so yes, 2 birds with 1 stone. And what I was doing back in the day, every time one of my stories got published, I was super excited about. So I would Google them to figure out, if they pop up or not, or when they ran. And so I actually Googled that story, St. Louis Surge news. And actually I had found that some smaller independent blog had took my story from The Current about them leaving UMSL and ran it in their on their blog.
They stole your story?
They stole the story, and I don't know what author they put it as, or they put something where it was basically no author, but they basically ran my story in their
Man, that
blog.
sucks. I'm sorry.
it kind of sucked, but then at the same time, it was kind of flattered in a weird way.
I guess that means you've made it in some way.
Yeah,
Because like if someone's ripping you off, like, all right, I'm not doing bad.
exactly. That's how I kind of took it. I was like, I made it.
So, from what I've gathered, and correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like you're kind of burnt out on sports writing. Is that true? Or would you say that it still holds a place in your heart? Do you have any thoughts on returning?
I think near the end of it, what ended up happening was I wasn't necessarily burnt out on sports writing because I kind of assumed, and I saw this when I was doing the STL magazine internship, like there's kind of politics no matter what you do.
Yeah.
So I could have been a sports writer. I could have been an entertainment writer. And I was having politics, with them, like meeting with managers to interview people or
Right.
things of that nature. So there was drama everywhere, and I wasn't too much concerned about that. There was a drama near the end with the newspaper as a whole. At the time, the editor-in-chief was retiring, and then there was like this big vote about who was going to take over. One girl had more votes than one guy who was actually dating the editor, but then he got the job, and there became like this weird division thing.
Wow.
All the drama.
All the damn drama. My goodness.
Exactly. And then too, maybe because if you know UMSL is mostly a commuter school.
Yeah.
Like you don't have too many kids who live on campus and, have so much pride that maybe SLU or WashU has. So getting engaged with them was difficult.
Right, because not many people are on campus.
Right. So I could have emailed like 10 students. Only one would hit me back out of that 10, and then there would have to be another 10
Right.
that I would have to do. So that was like mostly the discouraging things about doing that job. And then also just like not feeling a part of, I was doing it, but it felt more like this is a class rather than a group or something fun.
Okay. It's credits instead of like a passion.
It kind of felt like it, even though it was supposed to be, you're supposed to go there, present these ideas for stories and work with all these writers and, have a good time, but not really.
Gotcha.
That wasn't what ended up happening there. And maybe it's different now. I have no clue. When it came down to it at the end, when I graduated, I actually still had contacts with a lot of the people from STL Magazine as far as like people's managers. Like I was supposed to do a story with Tech9 that I never got to do.
Oh.
That still eats at me to this day. There was like an interview I was supposed to do.
Oh, man.
But what I find that ended up happening was networking is like a big thing.
Yeah. Anywhere you go.
Right.
Networking is a big thing. And who you meet and how you meet them.
Right.
That's definitely true.
And I didn't learn this I didn't really like comprehend it until the end of my college run. So there was more networking that I needed to do to really be appealing to jobs, to like be in competition for jobs, at least in the Missouri area. I sent a lot of applications out to like places in Missouri and then like outside of Missouri, and I always feel like there's a different way things run when you're trying to apply to jobs out of state.
Right. Are you glad you did it?
I'm definitely glad I did it. I don't regret it at all. I think there was a lot of skills that I transferred into other professions that we might get into one day.
Right. You could say it transposes out into other things you do.
Absolutely.
I've definitely seen it on the podcast and everything out here.
Would I love to write for Bleacher Report, ESPN? Absolutely, absolutely. And I think I even applied to things. And that's what I mean by like networking and just doing more. Because think about it, I spent a year writing for a newspaper and a magazine, but you know how jobs are. They're looking for 2, 3, 4 years. Yeah. So if I had started these things earlier, I think I would have been in better standing. I think I would have gotten jobs. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I would absolutely return to sports writing if I could, if the opportunity is right, starting my own.
Right.
But Yeah.
That's another thing now with technology that we can do. You can pretty much become your own reporter.
Right.
Like, with everything. You just need a condenser mic.
Yeah. Grab a friend and start a podcast.
That's right. I think it's an awesome idea.
Exactly.
What would you say has been the best takeaway from this part of your life?
It helped me learn how to handle deadline stress for sure.
And that applies to everything.
Yeah. And then I think it also taught me how to, even though I'm still like a reserved, quiet person, still the silent assassin.
That's his gym name.
Exactly. It definitely helped with my social skills, engaging with people, because you have to remember too that while I might think Kunaal would make for a really good story, at the end of the day, if I don't know Kunaal, I have to go talk to Kunaal.
This is true.
So, whether that be at Starbucks or exactly Starbucks, or meet him at his office, his business.
Yeah. You could say it helped you find this kind of position, helped you find yourself in some ways.
Absolutely.
All right, cool.
I also like to always state that I'm a retired journalist.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that whenever I talk to you too.
Yeah, it's like, I did it. I made it. I had my name out there for a little bit.
And it's a part of you.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really go away, even if it's not as active as it once was. It's how it kind of felt with the improv days.
Absolutely. One day, I will cover Kunaal doing improv at the St. Louis improv shop.
Yeah, once this pandemic is over. So we got a minute until that happens. But we will persist and we will make it through. We will.
Okay.
Promise you that.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening, and take care.
Hey, fan peeps. Thanks for joining. And as always, we appreciate any feedback. You can follow us on our Facebook page, They Need a Hobby, and also at TNAH Pod on Instagram and Twitter.
Hopefully one day we'll find a hobby and maybe even be one of the cool kids. Peace. Hang on 1 second.
This has been brought to you by Coke.
That's right. It has not. We will get into so much trouble if we do that.